stuff's getting so expensive. That's for real. I mean, the cost of some basics are 3 to 5x right now. And that's, going to just cascade in terms of its realness and its impacts.
With that in mind, the cost of everything's going up. The cost of land and the accessibility of land has never been, land has never been more inaccessible as far as I can tell. Certainly in my area, I'm coming from Ontario, we're here in Alberta. We're seeing the cost of land rise, and more and more folks are wanting to get out to the land. What do you see as future opportunities for, landless folks, I guess you would say, who are just desperate to get onto the land, find some connection, build some resilience? Where do these people go from here,
Yeah, it's so difficult. I definitely do not feel for that position a lot. And it's the whole, the generation from pretty much after me down, God, you guys have a tough road, the pricing of everything, the access to things. I think people got to get together. I mean, I almost got together with friends to buy land. I didn't end up needing to in the end and was able to get a loan. But I think that's a key move for some people is get together, whoever you can, and pool, figure out how you're going to do it all, and not necessarily the commune model, because those don't unfortunately tend to work most of the time, but you could just go in knowing, all right, we're going to get this, and then we're going to subdivide, because you can get, if you pool resources, so much is possible. I mean, there's still a lot of amazing pieces of ground available for, in the end, not that much money if a group is looking. But if you go to buy a single family home, even a crappy one, that's really expensive. There's very little value in the low end of the market. If you can go buy larger acreage, there's a ton of value there, but you got to be able to access it. So getting people together, 5 people could go buy 100 acres for way less per person than one of those people buying 5 acres. And you'd end up with 20 acres than 5. Just the value point is there, I think, in almost any place. So getting together with people, pooling resources, but in a way that's really figured out ahead of time, how it will go, and maybe with a subdivision in mind or a corporation formed or whatever. And just skilling up. I mean, getting skills, getting hard skills. That's the other thing is, the generations, especially from my age on down, are just crippled by the school system that they went through. And basically right after me is when they took shops all out of school. They sold all the equipment in most high schools. There's no more wood shop, metal shop. There used to be welding. You could learn that in a normal high school. You don't have to go to trade school, at least get a sense of it. Know if hey, I'm good at this. I could be really make a living, whatever in the trades. So those generations tend to be really hampered because they were sold a pack of just a Ponzi scheme of lies around, education, and training, and a lot of more of a proportion of the young people now have so little hands-on skills compared to probably any other generation ever. And that's a tough one. And so how to reskill, how to learn, work for people in the trades, do whatever you can to get hard skills. I don't have any easy answers there, but I know in Vermont, if you can afford to live here, it's so hard to find people. When I hear of the migrant crisis on the border and all these excess numbers of people, I'm send some up to Vermont, because we don't even have anyone who's willing to do a lot of jobs up here. And so we're in the opposite situation they are in some places. But there's just a huge black hole in the labor pool in certain parts of the country. Now, it can be hard to live in those places. So maybe if you have a tiny home on wheels or can camp or live lightly, there's ways in. I don't have any easy answers on that front, though. That's a super tough systemic problem.
It won't matter. We'll just buy real estate in the metaverse, and you can learn those skills in there too, and it's going to be fine.
Yeah, sure.
What's that game your kids play?
Oh, yeah.
Minecraft. The kids are learning how to build their digital worlds of Minecraft now.
I think the interest in skills is more than ever. At least in recent years, our interest in our apprenticeship, which is essentially free. Our permaculture course is not growing in interest. You got to pay some real money and go. to take it. But the apprenticeship is more interest in that from young people than ever. And so like those programs where it's like more of a trade, like, hey, we're not going to charge you basically anything. And, we trade our energy a bit and we share what we have to share. And it's brief and it's skill focused. Like, I think any of those opportunities, I think, are more and more a good thing now.
Absolutely.
You know what I've found, Ben, around here, and it's sad, but it's also the problem is the solution, is all these small towns in Alberta, like you can still buy a house here for $50,000 or $60,000 on a quarter acre of land. Like you could buy 4 of those houses if you really wanted to, take the fences down, or just buy one and then look at all the it's not really urban, but the prairie land around these small towns. You've got electrical lines, you've got a sewage system, you've got water coming in, all things that, like when we develop an acreage, it's $100,000 just to get power, water, and sewage set up. You haven't even built a house at that stage. And you can buy a house in one of these small towns with a house and land and all of those things. And it's amazing what you can grow on a quarter acre of land. Like,
yeah,
it may not be that all of us are going to end up on 10 to 160 acre parcels of land, just occupying the small areas that are basically rotting as people leave them is an enormous opportunity. And as you know, and as I'm rapidly learning on our quarter section, it's a lot of money and work to manage, even a small piece of land.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a huge continuous input, forever, but especially in the beginning 10 years. It's not an economic proposition, in a lot of ways in the current world. It's becoming more and more so, as like now a bag of groceries at our local co-op is like $90 for a normal bag. And that's if you're not buying a bunch of olive oil or local cheese. And then it's like 120. So as I think the costs of living basically rectify, I think they're actually becoming more what they should be. I don't want to say should, but are gonna be and are organically. We've had like a artificially propped up everything. The proposition of what you're getting at, Rob, of like growing a lot of your food, not all of it, but just a bunch of the stuff that costs you a lot of money, and living cheap, put a wood stove in and just have the cheapest mortgage you can have. But get a mortgage if you need to. Ideally stop renting. Get on a small piece is that can be incredibly economical. And if you can, keep your current job, don't quit your day job, do whatever you can to make some decent money, even if it's part-time, to get that project going. Say 20, 30 hours a week. And if you can work from home in any way, shape, or form, even if you hate it, it's a lot better than getting in and trying to commute, where so much all of a sudden can't happen at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's internet now. More than ever. And I don't know how much longer there's going to be all these internet jobs, but while it's a thing, use it, and that's one thing the young people know more than any other generation, is they almost inherently know how to navigate some of these systems and glean, some livelihood, at least a little bit from them potentially.
What advice do you have for people who want to start permaculture projects but don't have access to financing, don't have any land of their own in other places of this planet, where they're experiencing completely different realities? You might have to expand on that a little bit, Nikolaus, as to where on the planet you're referring to. But so what advice do you have for people who want to start permaculture projects, but don't have any money, don't have any land? I think you touched on that a little bit in your presentation, but I'll let you answer.
I don't think I'm in a position to provide advice to them. That would be so outside of my scope of experience. So I don't feel qualified to answer. I've kind of been in connection with a few projects in Africa, in Kenya, where we've helped do some GoFundMes and like donate money and get people to help garner donations for water harvesting equipment and stuff. I would ask those people maybe. And people like Warren Brush, who do a lot of international work in like, really challenging contexts where a lot of basic needs aren't being met. He's a great permaculture elder. I mean that in the best possible way, Warren, who works in that context, but it's not, I would love to work in that context more and just haven't gotten to it. So I don't really feel very qualified to say.
Warren in our panel later. So that's
great.
Cool. Yeah.
What a legend.
Yeah, totally. And what I'd say is like what you said earlier, no matter where you are in the world, learn skills as much as possible. And anybody can get out there and teach skills. I mean, I think especially if working internationally, right? You don't want to be presumptuous and show up to a place and think you have all these skills. I think that people of a place, people who have been there for a very long time, they have these ancestral roots, and I think it's more about revitalizing that and revitalizing those cultures and finding that ancestral wisdom and that ancestral connection to the land.
And that maybe that's probably true for a lot of people. And then, there's some place in the world, like the best thing you can do might be to just freaking leave, like flee, I don't know. That's why I was watching videos of the coltan mines in Congo 2 days ago, which is a really bad idea to do before you go to sleep. But, that shit's happening, like there's total, like, we say, oh, well, shit's gonna hit the fan if we're in the US, whatever. It's like shit's already hit the fan hard over and over again for hundreds of years in so many places. And there's people living in, completely, unbelievable conditions. And, maybe for some of those people, like, I can't advise anyone in some of these situations. And sometimes, in my ancestry, there's been times where it was just the time to leave. There were times to just go and move and flee or whatever. So it's like, it's all context dependent.
Yeah. And what comes to mind just quickly on that topic too, is we discussed this in our permaculture design course a lot. And if you guys are familiar with BYPP, we talk about it in that as well. But again, I don't know the context that question was coming from, but to start to look into your 8 forms of capital, you might not have any land, you might not have any financing. So you don't have, financial or living capital, but you might be tremendously wealthy in other forms of capital. You might have an incredible wealth of social capital. You might have an incredible wealth in intellectual capital. Maybe you've got tons of ideas and things that you could start to use in different ways. So just remember, finance and living capital are incredibly important, but they are only 2 forms of capital in 8 forms. So if you guys haven't checked that out, I highly recommend just doing a quick Google on 8 forms of capital.
Totally.
We hope you enjoyed that snippet from the Verge live stream. If you want more, check us out at vergepermaculture.ca.